Welcome back to Breakthrough Innovation, where we uncover what it really takes to lead, change, create value, and build what's next. I'm Preston Chandler, and I'm usually here with my co-host, JL Heather. He couldn't join us today. Together, we lead Centered, a firm that helps organizations navigate complexity, spark creativity, and unlock the full potential of their teams through innovation coaching and strategy. I'm excited for today's guest. We probably spent way too much time shooting the breeze before recording today. His name is Chris LaFay. He's an agency founder, podcaster, developer, musician, and lifelong builder of digital experiences. Chris is the CEO of Classic City Consulting, which is a web strategy firm that helps growing businesses simplify and clarify their online presence. He's also the host of another podcast called This Got Me Thinking, which has got me thinking. So I'm
Hey,
going
look
to
at that already, just right there, off
just
the
right
cuff.
there.
I love it.
Chris isn't just talking about growth, he's living it, from building websites since he was in fifth grade. Yeah, you heard that right, fifth grade, to mentoring agency founders through the 0 to 1 grind. Chris brings a unique mix of system thinking, empathy, and strategy and strategic clarity to every challenge, whether he's scaling a business or he's playing the guitar or tracking relationships with spreadsheet precision. Chris is relentlessly focused on what it takes to grow and to stay human. Chris, I'm excited to have you. Welcome to Breakthrough Innovation today.
Hey, thanks for having me. That was a fantastic introduction. I love it. It was new and different, and I'm a fan.
That's great. We have trained GPT well on how to give.
You took all the things and all my stories that I've told verbally before in the past, and you shoved them into ChatGPT and
Yeah,
say, "Introduce this man for me."
yeah,
Yes, exactly.
it works pretty well. You are not the first one to be like, "Wow, that was a great introduction." I would like to talk to you a bit about innovation today, specifically about some of your day to day. So you're constantly tinkering, you're reflecting, you're building systems. What does innovation mean for you in your day to day?
In my day-to-day, innovation looks like tiny plus ones, and how do those plus ones stack up over time? Now, there's a continuum of this, right? Because if you continue to try to add these plus ones, these little updates, these little tiny things over and over and over again, and they cause you not to ever launch the thing that you're working on, you end up chasing your tail. It's like, oh, I want to do this, but before I get this done, I have to do this first. Oh wait, but then I also need to do this as well. And then you start going in these endless loops of getting from an 80% solid product to 85% to 86 to 87. And it's this like strive for perfection that I know, at least as me as a founder, is never going to attain perfection, right? Nothing, no system, no structure is ever going to be correct and exactly like what you want it to be. But there is a magic of always trying to figure out what's the little bit more that I can do here. And like internally for me, something I was working on recently. Now, I don't know if innovation is the appropriate word for this, but like you said, I host my own podcast, right? And I suck at monotonous tasks, doing the same things over and over again. So when you host a podcast, there's a lot of steps to the process, right? It's getting the guest in, making sure they have what they need ahead of time, following up with them afterwards, getting them their assets, going live. Like there's multiple steps, multiple touch points. And I knew that I would I would drop the ball so quickly on all of that. And so I probably spent the better part of a day creating systems and structure for myself so that everything that I do is either automated or a button push. And the number of compliments that I've gotten from people that have guested on my show have been honestly shockingly high. I was expecting 0 at the end of the day. I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
wanted to make sure that I stayed in touch with these folks and then let them know where they're kind of at in the whole process. And because I've had a good structure here, I have been able to get from those people, get more guest recommendations, so referrals and things like that, reviews on the podcast, and actually keeping people up to date, giving all of their assets at them at the correct time with the right links, no mistypings and misspellings. Everything has been so dialed in from day one. And that's because I push go. eventually and just decided to do it. And when you do stuff like that, you're solving small problems, but they're big. But at the end of the day, they're big problems. Like I talked to another podcast host that I know. I told him what I did, and he was like, "Can you show me?" And so finding these like little tiny pockets of innovation and how they can impact other founders and other different types of people is very interesting. I'm not making money off of this podcast system that I've created, but it is interesting to see how it's also impacting other folks to also innovate internally as well.
I feel like we're kindred spirits. Honestly, I hate all of the granular details. I'm not detail oriented, but I love the way that you've described that. Pick a thing and then just build it, build that little thing, and then let it go, and you'll see it's like compound interest. You'll just see how this exponentially starts improving. Gail and I coach teams a lot, and one thing that I tell them is that if you just pick one thing every week or two to improve, you'll look back in 6 months and be like, oh, wow, we've changed so much. Yeah, you don't have to boil the ocean. To your point, you don't have to get it perfect. It'll never be perfect. The amount of effort it takes to get closer to perfect is exponentially more. So you're better off. Do the 80 and just move on. And it's amazing the results that you see. Yeah.
It's wonderful. And I know that when you launch things, as soon as you launch it and it goes live, whatever version of that is, you realize problem areas almost immediately. And so
Yeah.
I picked out like 3 people because some of the things that I was doing here were automated. Like something would run every day at 8 a.m. and whatnot. And so I picked like 3 people who liked me. And I was like, I have tested these things with my own email addresses. I have not tested it with somebody else's. And I realized there's technically no difference here, but it feels different. So I'm going to run these things and you will get an email at 8:05 a.m. over the next couple of weeks. Not every day, but just like once or twice. It's like all I need you to do, screenshot it, text it to me, forward it to me, whatever it is. And it allowed that launch to not go from what feel like go from 0 to 100, but it kind of felt like it went from 0 to 20. And that's a lot. That step up is a lot more manageable. And still, it was still very stressful when I knew that there was an email going out the next morning to somebody that I did not know at all. And I was like, I pray this thing works like it has over the last week during my testing. And it did. And so I got it to the appropriate 80%. And I've tweaked it a little bit here and there over the last couple of months. And now it's humming and it's working. And I have gotten rid of pretty much all the monotonous work off of my plate. And it's absolutely fantastic. And I've saved so many more hours than the hours I put into it already. So 10 out of 10, it actually worked. I took something small, innovated on it, and launched it, and I'm a happier man for it.
Well, and I think there's an interesting thing to pull out of there is the perspective on risk. You could have done a risk of a 0 to 100, and that's really risky and that feels uncomfortable. And, what if I mess up? But if we can find ways to get that early feedback, to your point, real feedback, sending it to yourself doesn't work for real feedback. But get the real feedback, you can reduce the risk. You can ensure that, yeah, I'm going to be successful, but you're still releasing something. You still hit that go button to let it go.
Another thing that I innovated on earlier this year, again, this is all internal, but everybody says, you should have a marketing email that goes out. Like you're an agency, make sure that you're sending out like regular communication to folks and whatnot. 100% agree with that. But I've always been very, not, I won't say adamantly against it, but I've always had a struggle with it because I don't want to annoy hundreds of people with an agency newsletter. Like nobody like, is it good that my name pops up in their inbox so that they just see it and I can become top of mind? 100%. Whether they read it or not, whatever. Chris LaFay
Yeah,
is in the
yeah.
inbox. That's all fine. But I've never liked the idea of annoying the crap out of people.
Ditto.
And I was like, no. And nobody cares if we're doing an event over here, or we launched X or Y or whatever. And so I had this idea earlier this year. I like education and I like helping people think about something in a slightly different way. And most folks that are on my list are either past clients or agency partners that I have. And a lot of the clients are smaller businesses that are still, I won't say founder operated, but kind of operate in that like very nimble standpoint.
Company death.
And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I wanted a reason to reach out to my agency partners and to have a conversation with them about a problem that they solved or something interesting that happened. And so I was like, I'm going to do a weekly call with just one of the agency folks that I know in my network. And I'm just going to ask them, tell me an interesting story that's happened recently. Some of this is unexpected. And they would tell me a story and I would write them an email from almost, it was actually written by them. This is how I kind of positioned it. And I was like, hey, I got Garrett joining me today for this weekly or bi-weekly email blast. Here's a story from Garrett. And I wrote it kind of in the first person as it was Garrett. I linked to Garrett's LinkedIn, linked to his website and whatnot, and basically just sent it out from my email saying, hey, I'm all into this collaboration thing. Garrett's our weekly highlight collaborator. And almost immediately, I got so much feedback of like the content, like the topic, but it's really weird that Garrett wrote an email coming from Chris at Classic City. Like, that's just a little bit weird and off-putting because I wrote it kind of like a plain text email. And so I immediately pushed pause and
You
then
got
just
feedback.
rewrote the story differently. And basically, rather than writing it from Garrett's perspective, I wrote it from my perspective. Like, I had a conversation with Garrett and I retold his story in my own words with the thing that I learned at the end. And with that shift in perspective, I got zero feedback. I mean, I got some positive, I got positive feedback. I got zero negative feedback. And so, because I was willing to push go on something, I was then able to respond very quickly and also make a fairly small tweak at the end of the day. And now that's just running. And I have a reason to talk to my agency friends who I don't get to talk to all the time. And I get a chance to call them out and highlight something that they're doing that's interesting and also share something that is educational and a learning thing that pretty much anybody in my network would possibly have an interest in hearing about. And now it's not just a billboard for Classic City builds websites. In case you forgot, it's something of interest and it's powered by my friends. And so it has that collaboration piece, but also a little bit about marketing as well too. So just another like small little plus one that got added over time, and trial and error leads to the good ideas.
And again, to your earlier point, you have to hit the button. You have to say go to
Mhm.
even learn from it. So Chris, 15 minutes goes by really fast, by the way. So, so I
Yes,
want
it
you to
does.
wrap up with one question, and then we'll wrap up. What's one piece of advice that you'd like to give our listeners? Honestly, people who are small business, they might be starting up. They're trying to go from that 0 to 1 phase. What's one piece of advice?
My direct experience going from kind of that 0 to 1 phase is keeping an eye very hard on the expenses side of the business. And I'm speaking mostly from an agency mindset here. Is you kind of have your cost of goods sold and your expenses. The trap that I fell into over the years while we were growing the business, and we grew from 300K a year to north of $1 million. And that, by default, you hear those things and you're like, oh, you did that over a 4-year period. That's a huge success. And there were plenty of successes within there. Don't get me wrong. But going and from just specifically that 0 to 1 mindset, what I did not realize going from revenue X to revenue Y is I had this very slow creep of operational expenses happen. There wasn't this overnight thing to where one day I hired a guy that cost me 150K a year and he wasn't billable at all. It was a very slow creep in my finances that moved people from being billable to unbillable. And that's one of the things I talk to a lot of the agency folks that I mentor that are of varying sizes is don't get distracted by the shiny objects that seem like they're going to save you hours and hours and hours of time every single week, because a lot of them don't. And I got caught into that trap multiple times over, and it made that scaling process a lot less sustainable than it could have been. And so we scaled too quickly, but for different reasons than you typically hear about kind of in the social media sphere of like, don't scale too quickly. It's really hard to scale fast. And I didn't think we were, because we weren't growing 2 to 3 times our size year over year. We were going like 40 to 50% a year. I was like, we're under that curve that most people talk about. And Even so, with that being said, we still fell prey to some of those types of traps. And so that's really the biggest thing that I've learned over the years. It's so tangible and so minute and so like so very simplistic and not like one of these like overarching like big like not ethereal, what's the word I'm looking for? This big umbrella like generic pieces of advice. It's hyper specific, I realize, but it has been the biggest through line between the last 4 or 5 years running our business.
That's great. Chris, I wholeheartedly agree with that. Having seen the small business side myself, I've also seen some of that creeping expenses. It's this death by a million cuts, or however you want to phrase it.
Exactly.
Last thing before we wrap up, where can people connect with you? Where can they learn more about you? Where can they reach out and maybe have opportunities to collaborate?
Yeah. If you're looking for website work, hit up classiccity.com. I write a ton of content on LinkedIn. My name is Chris LaFay. I am the only Chris LaFay on LinkedIn. And so if you can't find me, you might have spelled my name wrong. LAFAI. So I look forward to hearing from you all later.
Thank you, Chris. This has been great. I love hearing your insights and perspectives. For everybody else who joined us until the end, thank you. This episode, I think, has been a great opportunity to reflect and think about how can you push that button? How can you just go and start learning? So if you found value from today's episode, please comment about it. Take it, apply it into your life. We'd love to hear how this has affected you and in your business. And as always, as you click that 5th star in the review,
Mhm.
feel free to share that with others and connect people to Chris if you found this episode valuable. So thanks again, Chris. And to everybody else, we will see you next time on Breakthrough Innovation.